When someone disappears from your life or you choose to remove yourself from theirs, it creates an undeniable shift. That sudden absence is powerful because it leaves behind an empty space. For men, this can be profoundly unsettling. They may not realize it right away, but the silence has a way of echoing louder than words ever could. Without your voice, your energy, and your presence, they begin to notice what's missing. It's human nature, isn't it? When we're constantly surrounded by someone, we grow accustomed to them, and sometimes we take their presence for granted. But when that presence is gone, it's as though a light that was always on suddenly goes dark. Curiosity begins to creep in. They start to wonder, what's she doing now? Is she okay? Is she happy? They might scroll through old memories, replay past conversations, or imagine you moving on without them. That silence creates questions, and with those questions comes a pull, a desire to know the answers. Men, like anyone else, often don't recognize the significance of what they have until it's no longer within their reach. And here's the truth, they might not even be aware of this process. At first, they may distract themselves, try to fill the void with other activities or people, but distraction only works temporarily. As time passes, the realization starts to settle and something is different. Something is missing. It's the mystery of your absence that draws their mind back to you. Your decision to step away or remain silent isn't just about creating distance, it's about reclaiming your energy. It's about showing that your world doesn't revolve around anyone else. That move, intentional or not, signals confidence and self-respect. And for a man, that's intriguing. It's a kind of energy that's magnetic because it's rare. You're no longer chasing, no longer readily available, and that shift changes the dynamic. It stirs something within him, a desire to understand what's changed, to reestablish the connection that feels like it's slipping away. The absence also gives him space to reflect on you, on the relationship, on himself. And that reflection, spurred by curiosity, can be the catalyst for his return. He wants to reconnect, not just to fill the silence, but to rediscover the person he now realizes mattered more than he knew. Curiosity is a powerful thing. It's the spark that lights a fire, the thought that won't go away. When you choose to step back, you don't just give him the opportunity to miss you, you create the chance for him to see you clearly, perhaps for the first time. Sometimes it's not until someone is left wondering that they truly begin to value what was always there. Let him wonder. Let him reflect. The mystery of your absence does more than you can imagine. When you step back and let silence fill the space where your presence used to be, something fascinating happens. It's in that silence that your value begins to shine even more brightly than it ever could in your presence. When you were always there, always accessible, it was easy for him to overlook the energy, the care, and the support you poured into the connection. But now, in your absence, the truth of what you brought to his life becomes impossible to ignore. Men often realize the depth of your value only when they no longer have immediate access to it. It's not out of malice or neglect, but a natural part of human behavior. We get used to good things, to stability, to comfort. And then when those things are gone, we feel the shift, the loss. He begins to notice the void you've left behind, the quiet moments that now feel a little emptier to you because they're missing your laugh, your encouragement, or even your presence. In the days and weeks that follow no contact, this realization deepens. He might not be able to put his finger on it at first, but there's an undeniable sense that something significant is missing. It's the way you supported him when he doubted himself, the way you celebrated his victories, no matter how small. It's the warmth of your energy, the stability you provided without expecting anything in return. All those little things, once taken for granted, now stand out like stars in a dark sky. What's happening here is simple. Distance amplifies your worth. By stepping back, you allow him to see what life feels like without you in it. It's not an act of punishment or manipulation. It's the natural consequence of removing your energy from someone who may not have fully appreciated it. He starts to connect the dots, realizing how much lighter his days felt with you around, how much more confident he felt with your support. And here's where it becomes powerful. When you value yourself enough to create that space, you send a message without ever speaking a word. It's a message that says, I am not here to be overlooked. Look, my energy, my love, and my presence are valuable, that silent declaration reverberates louder than anything you could say. And it forces him to confront the reality of his choices. The most intriguing part, this realization often sneaks up on him when he least expects it. Maybe it's during a quiet moment, a memory triggered by a song or a place you used to visit together. Or perhaps it's when he encounters someone else and notices that something is missing, that intangible quality you brought into his life that can't easily be replaced. It's then that he starts to see the full scope of your value, not just as a partner, but as a person. Your decision to step back doesn't just benefit him, it transforms you. It gives you time to focus on yourself, to rebuild your confidence, and to recognize your own worth. And as you grow, your energy becomes even more radiant. That's what truly draws him back, not just the memory of who you were, but the undeniable presence of who you become. In the silence of no contact, your value becomes crystal clear. And the more he reflects, the more he realizes what he lost. That's the power of your worth that speaks volumes, even in your absence. When a man has been without you for a while, something starts to happen inside of him. It's not just about missing your presence, it's about realizing the stability you brought into his life. Relationships are more than companionship, they're often about grounding each other, offering support in the chaos of life. And when that stability is gone, it creates a ripple effect, even if he doesn't recognize it immediately. At first, he might think everything's fine. He might even convince himself that life feels lighter without the commitments or expectations that come with a relationship. But slowly, as days turn into weeks, a new awareness begins to creep in. He starts to notice how unsteady things feel without you there. Maybe it's the way you used to calm him down when things went wrong, or how you always knew the right words to say when he felt unsure of himself. Those moments of reassurance, so subtle and constant, are now glaringly absent. What he begins to miss isn't just you, it's the foundation you built together. Relationships aren't just about love, they're about creating a space where two people can grow, support each other, and find balance. In your absence, he feels that imbalance more acutely with every passing day. The chaos of life starts to feel heavier without someone to share it with, without the anchor you once provided. Men often don't articulate this because it's not something they've been taught to process openly. But internally, the realization builds. It might show up as frustration, as a longing he can't quite put his finger on, or as a sudden wave of memories that remind him of how steady things felt when you were around. It's in those quiet moments when he's alone, when he's left to his own thoughts, that he starts to see what he had. What's powerful about this realization is that it doesn't happen because you demanded it or tried to prove a point. It happens naturally as a result of you stepping back and allowing him to feel the full weight of life without your presence. That's the gift of silence. It forces reflection. And here's the truth, everyone wants stability. We all crave a sense of home, a feeling of safety in the arms of someone who truly sees us. When you provided that, it became part of his life in ways he may not have even noticed. But now, without it, the absence is unmistakable. He starts to see the difference between the temporary distractions he might have turned to and the lasting comfort you offered. This is where the power lies, not in chasing, not in convincing, but in letting him come to his own realization. When he sees how steady things felt with you compared to the unpredictability of life without you, it creates a pull. It's not just about missing you, it's about longing for the peace and balance you brought into his life. Stability is rare in a world full of chaos, and when a man finds it, it leaves an imprint. Your absence doesn't just leave a void, it creates clarity. It shows him what truly matters and what he's lost. And that's when the longing to reconnect becomes undeniable, not out of convenience, but out of a deep recognition of your value. When a man returns after a period of no contact, there's often a deeper layer to his actions than what appears on the surface. It's not just that he's missed you or that he's reflecting on what he's lost, though. Those things are true. What really pulls him back is the realization that despite the time and distance, the connection you shared still holds meaning. Time has a way of revealing what's real, and the kind of bond that draws someone back is one that stands out as genuine, even in hindsight. Distance allows people to see things clearly without the noise of daily interactions clouding their judgment. When he reflects on your time together, it's not just about the good memories. It's about the substance of what you brought to his life, the conversations that sparked his mind, the way you challenged him to be better, and the comfort of knowing someone truly had his back. Those things don't fade easily because they're not superficial. They're rooted in something real. And it's not just about him realizing what you offered. It's about how you carried yourself during no contact. You didn't chase, you didn't plead, and you didn't lower your standards to get his attention. That kind of self-respect speaks volumes. It sends a powerful message: I value myself enough to let you figure out what you truly want without me having to convince you. That level of confidence isn't just attractive, it's unforgettable. What makes someone come back isn't just the absence they feel, it's the way you handle that absence. Your silence wasn't a void, it was a statement. It said, I am worth the effort. I am not here to beg for what I deserve. And whether he admits it or not, that energy is magnetic. It draws him back because it's rare to find someone who knows their worth and refuses to compromise it. As time passes, he begins to realize that connections like yours aren't easy to find. Maybe he's encountered others who don't challenge him in the same way, or who don't bring the same depth to his life. Or maybe he's tried to move on and found that the connections he forms don't carry the same spark, the same meaning. Whatever the case, it becomes clear that the bond he had with you is unique. This isn't about playing games or trying to manipulate someone into coming back. It's about the natural pull of authenticity. When you're genuine, when you give your all without losing yourself, and then step back to let someone recognize your value on their own, it creates a lasting impression. It's the kind of impression that time and distance can't erase. When he does return, it's not out of convenience. It's not because he's bored or lonely, it's because he's realized something deeper. He's seen that what you had wasn't just a fleeting connection, but something that left a mark on his life. And that's why he comes back, not to take advantage of you, but because he's finally ready to acknowledge the depth of what you shared. In the end, the choice is yours whether to accept him back. But know this: the reason he's returned is a testament to your strength, your value, and the way you carried yourself when the world told you to settle. That's your power, and it's undeniable. When a man comes back after a period of no contact, it's often because he's realized the undeniable truth: the connection he had with you was authentic and rare. There's a point where he begins to see through the noise of his life, through the distractions, and recognizes that what you offered wasn't just companionship, it was a depth of care, support, and understanding that doesn't come around every day. He's drawn back not because he's simply lonely, but because he's understood the value of what he lost. And like everyone can take time to process their emotions. Often they compartmentalize and move forward without fully acknowledging what's beneath the surface. But as time stretches on, those emotions resurface in unexpected ways. Maybe it's a memory triggered by a song, quiet moment of reflection, or even an encounter with someone who doesn't quite measure up to the standard you set. These realizations aren't immediate, but they build steadily until they become undeniable. When you chose no contact, it wasn't about punishment, it was about creating space for clarity. That silence gave him room to reflect, to think about what life feels like without you in it. And in that reflection, he started to see things he might have overlooked before. He saw the way you supported him without expecting anything in return. He remembered the little things: how you listened, how you were there in ways others weren't, and how you made his world feel more stable, even when everything else felt chaotic. This isn't just about missing you. It's about realizing the void your absence created. Life without you isn't just quieter, it's less vibrant. He begins to notice the lack of depth in his interactions with others, the surface level conversations that don't compare to the meaningful exchanges he had with you. And he starts to see that the connection you shared wasn't just a relationship, it was a partnership, a bond that made him feel truly seen and valued. What pulls him back is the authenticity of your connection. In a world full of superficial relationships, finding someone who genuinely cares, who invests in the relationship with their whole heart, is rare. And when he compares that to what he's experienced since your absence, it becomes clear that what you offered wasn't just different, it was exceptional. But there's another layer to this, the way you carried yourself during no contact. You didn't chase him or try to convince him of your worth. Instead, you let your silence speak for you. That silence wasn't empty, it was filled with self-respect and a quiet confidence that said, I know my value and I won't settle for anything less than what I deserve. That energy is powerful. It's magnetic. It doesn't just make him miss you, it makes him realize the strength you carry within yourself. When he thinks back, it's not just the memories of you that lingered, it's the way you made him feel. It's the sense of peace, of belonging, of being with someone who truly understood him. And those feelings don't fade, they stick with him, reminding him of what he walked away from. What makes this moment profound is that his return isn't just about you. It's about him coming to terms with his own growth, his own realizations. By stepping away, you gave him the chance to see things clearly, to grow in his understanding of what truly matters. And when he comes back, it's not just about wanting to be with you again, it's about acknowledging the depth and meaning of the bond you shared. In those quiet moments of no contact, your worth became undeniable. Not because you shouted from the rooftops, but because you lived it. Your actions, your silence, and your unwavering self-respect spoke louder than any words ever could. And now as he returns, it's not just out of longing, but out of recognition of the rare and beautiful connection that still holds a place in his heart. When a man returns after no contact, it's often because he has come face to face with the truth about your boundaries. See, boundaries are powerful. They're not just rules, they're declarations of self-respect. A way of saying, I love myself enough to demand what I deserve. When you set those boundaries, you might think he won't notice, but let me tell you, he notices. At first, he might not understand them. He might even push back, try to test them, or convince himself that they're unnecessary. But over time, as the silence stretches and he's left to sit with his thoughts, something shifts. He begins to see that those boundaries weren't walls to shut him out, they were gates, carefully placed to protect what is valuable, your peace, your worth, and your energy. Boundaries send a message, and it's not one you need to speak out loud. The message is clear: if you want access to me, it has to be on terms that honor who I am. That realization doesn't come immediately for some men, but when it does, it's profound. It makes him pause and reevaluate not just his actions, but the way he's been moving through life. No contact isn't just about absence, it's about the strength of holding firm to those boundaries. It's about showing him that you're not afraid to step back and prioritize yourself, even if it means walking away from something you once held dear. That kind of self-assurance is rare and it's unforgettable. What he realizes during no contact is that your boundaries weren't meant to reject him, they were meant to guide him. They showed him what it looks like to value yourself, to refuse to settle for anything less than you deserve. And that lesson sticks with him, whether he wants to admit it or not. In the silence, he starts to think about what it felt like to be in your presence. He remembers how you carried yourself with grace, how you didn't allow disrespect to slide, and how you stood firm in your worth, even when it wasn't convenient. Those moments of strength leave an impression. They show him what it looks like to have standards, and they challenge him to rise to meet them. The truth is, boundaries are a reflection of love, not just love for yourself, but love for the other person. They're a way of saying, I care about you enough to expect the best from you. And I care about myself enough not to settle for less. That kind of love isn't weak or conditional, it's strong, intentional, and transformative. When he comes back, it's because he's felt the impact of your boundaries. They forced him to reflect, to grow, and to confront parts of himself that he might have avoided. It's not an easy process, but it's necessary. And when he returns, it's not just about missing you, it's about recognizing the strength and integrity you bring to the table. Your boundaries didn't push him away, they gave him a roadmap. They showed him what a healthy relationship looks like, one where mutual respect and understanding are non-negotiable. And that's why he comes back not to test those boundaries again, but because he's learned to respect them. In the end, the power of no contact isn't just in the silence, it's in the message that silence carries. It's in the strength of holding your ground, the courage to say, I deserve better, and I'm willing to wait for it. And when he returns, it's because he's finally ready to meet you at the level you've always stood on. When a man returns after a period of no contact, it often reveals a profound truth. Absence makes him see you through a lens of clarity he never had before. During the silence, when the noise of everyday life quiets down, he starts to reflect not just on the relationship, but on who you were within it. And what he begins to realize is powerful. You were more than a partner. You were a source of strength, of support, and of meaning. Men, like everyone else, can be creatures of habit. It's easy for them to take for granted the very things that bring them peace and comfort when those things are always available. But when you remove yourself, when you choose no contact and give him the space to exist without you, he's left to face the stark contrast between having you in his life and living without you. In that void, he remembers the details that once felt so small, but now loom large. He recalls the way you listened when he needed to be heard, the way you encouraged him when he doubted himself, and even the way you challenged him to be better when he fell short. Those moments weren't just fleeting, they were imprints, shaping how he saw himself in the world. And now, without you there, he realizes just how deeply those imprints matter. Your absence forces him to see the truth of what you brought to the table. It's not just about the big gestures, it's the consistency, the quiet strength, and the unwavering care that now feel irreplaceable. The meals shared, the laughter exchange, the moments of vulnerability, these weren't just experiences, they were the foundation of something real, something grounding. And now he misses that. But it's more than just nostalgia. The time apart gives him the chance to understand you in a way he couldn't before. He sees how you valued yourself, how you didn't chase him or beg for his attention. Instead, you stepped back, gave space, and trusted your own worth. That kind of confidence is rare, and it's unforgettable. He begins to recognize that the way you carried yourself, even in the face of distance, was a reflection of your strength. You didn't let the silence break you. You used it to grow, to heal, and to reaffirm who you are. And that energy, it's magnetic. It doesn't just draw him back, it inspires him to be better, to rise to the level of the person he now realizes he had all along. In his return, there's a vulnerability that wasn't there before. It's not just about wanting to reconnect, it's about acknowledging the depth of the bond that still pulls at him. He comes back because he's seen the difference between what you offered and what others couldn't. He's felt the weight of your absence, and he knows it's not something he wants to carry any longer. Your strength and no contact wasn't just about him, it was about you. It was about standing firm in your values, trusting the process, and knowing that what's meant for you will find its way back. And now, here he is, returning not just because he misses you, but because he's realized your worth in ways he couldn't see before. This journey, this period of separation wasn't wasted. It was a necessary part of the story, a chance for both of you to grow, to reflect, and to understand what truly matters. And as he returns, it's with a new perspective, one that sees you not just as someone he cares about, but as someone he deeply respects and values. Sometimes it takes distance to bring clarity, and in that clarity, he's found his way back to the person who always stood out. When a man comes back after a period of no contact, one of the most profound realizations he has is the irreplaceable nature of genuine connection. He's not just drawn back by the memory of who you are, he's drawn back by the feeling of what it was like to be with you, the emotional safety, the shared understanding, and the quiet, steady support that cannot be replicated elsewhere. In his absence, he's had time to compare, to reflect, and to recognize that what he experienced with you is not something easily found. At first, no contact feels like freedom to him. There's space to breathe, to focus on himself, and maybe even to explore other options. But as time stretches on, the novelty wears off. He starts to realize that something crucial is missing. It's not just your presence, it's the depth of the bond you shared. The surface level interactions he might encounter elsewhere don't come close to matching the authenticity of what you had. He remembers how you made him feel seen and understood in a way that others didn't. You had the ability to look past the facade, to connect with who he truly was, even in his most vulnerable moments. That level of intimacy, of emotional depth is rare. And as much as he might have taken it for granted before, now he sees its value. It's in the quiet moments of his solitude that this realization becomes unavoidable. He might try to distract himself to fill the void with work, hobbies, or even new relationships, but distractions only last so long. Eventually, he's left with the truth the connection you shared was unique, built on trust, respect, and an unspoken understanding. And that truth begins to weigh on him. What draws him back isn't just a memory of you, it's the realization of what he lost. In the silence, he's forced to confront the fact that relationships like yours aren't easily replaced. They require effort, vulnerability, and a mutual willingness to grow together. And now he sees that he may have walked away from something extraordinary in pursuit of something fleeting. When he returns, it's often with a mix of hope and humility. Hope that the door isn't fully closed, and humility in recognizing that he may need to work to earn his place back in your life. This isn't just about rekindling what once was, it's about acknowledging the depth of what you built together and the part he played in losing it. But his return is also a testament to your strength. Your choice to go no contact wasn't just about creating distance, it was about honoring yourself. It was about stepping back and giving him the space to see what he needed to see without you having to convince him of your worth. That kind of self-assurance speaks volumes, even in silence. As he reflects, he begins to see that what made your connection so special wasn't just the love you gave, it was the way you loved yourself enough to demand reciprocity. You didn't settle for less, and that boundary is what ultimately drew him back. It showed him that you value yourself, and that value is magnetic. This journey, though painful, has been necessary. It's allowed both of you to see the truth more clearly. For him, it's a chance to appreciate the depth of what you offered. For you, it's a reaffirmation of your strength and the power of honoring your own needs. And when he returns, it's not just with words, it's with a deeper understanding of who you are and the connection you shared. That kind of clarity, born from absence and reflection, is the foundation of something stronger, something more intentional, and something truly lasting. When a man returns after no contact, it's often because he's discovered the kind of peace you brought into his life, a peace he didn't even realize he needed. During the time apart, he's had a chance to sit with himself, to wrestle with his thoughts, and to confront the reality of what life is like without your presence. And it's in those moments of solitude that he begins to appreciate the emotional sanctuary you provided, one he might have overlooked or underestimated before. Relationships aren't just about grand gestures or fiery passion. They're about the everyday rhythm of life, the small, quiet moments that make up the foundation of connection. In the absence of contact, he starts to see that your presence brought balance to his life. Maybe it was the way you diffused tension with a kind word or the way you knew when to listen without judgment. Whatever it was, it created a stability that's hard to find. And now he feels the lack of it profoundly. He remembers the way you made him feel grounded. When life became chaotic, you were the steady anchor he could rely on. You didn't just show up during the good times, you were there when things were difficult, offering encouragement and helping him see the light in the darkest moments. That kind of presence leaves an impression that time and distance can't erase. But it's more than just memories. It's about the energy you carry. You brought something intangible but deeply felt into his life, a sense of calm, of safety, of being understood. And when you're no longer there, the absence creates a ripple effect. He feels it in the little things, in the quietness of a lonely evening, or the emptiness of conversations that lack the depth you brought. No contact isn't just about silence, it's about reflection. And in that reflection, he begins to piece together how much of his happiness, his growth, and even his sense of self was influenced by your presence. It's not that he couldn't function without you, but he starts to see that he functioned better with you. He realizes that the peace you offered wasn't just circumstantial, it was a part of who you are. It came from the way you approach life with grace and strength, even when things weren't easy. And now in your absence, he's left to grapple with the truth that what you brought into his life isn't something he can find elsewhere. His return isn't just about rekindling what once was. It's a recognition of what he's been missing. He's had the time to compare, to experience what life is like without you, and to understand that not all relationships are built on the same foundation. The peace you brought wasn't a given, it was something rare, something worth cherishing. But this isn't just about him. Your decision to go no contact wasn't about manipulation or gains, it was about choosing yourself. It was about stepping back and allowing him the space to see the truth on his own without you having to point it out. That choice is a testament to your strength and self-respect. When he returns, it's with a clearer understanding of who you are and what you offer. It's not just about longing, it's about recognizing the value of the peace and stability you brought into his life. And that realization, born out of time and reflection, carries the potential for something deeper, something more authentic, and something truly lasting. When a man returns after a period of no contact, one of the most significant things he realizes is the impact of your absence on his own sense of personal growth. He starts to understand that being with you wasn't just about the emotional connection, it was about how you challenged him, how you made him a better version of himself. He's had time to reflect on how, in your presence, he was encouraged to strive for more, to push beyond his limits, and to evolve into someone more aligned with his highest potential. In your absence, he feels the void, not just emotionally, but in his own personal development. During the time you spent together, it wasn't always easy, but it was transformative. You didn't just accept him as he was, you encouraged him to grow, to become the best version of himself. You didn't shy away from challenging him when needed, but it was never about criticism. It was about pushing him to be better, to think bigger, and to reach for more. And now that you're no longer there, he realizes how much he took that growth for granted. At first, the absence might feel like freedom, like he's finally able to do things his way without anyone questioning him. But soon he begins to feel the weight of stagnation. Without the encouragement you provided, without the constant push to do better, he starts to see that he's plateaued. He realizes that growth, real and lasting growth, often comes from being held accountable, from being in a relationship that challenges you to rise to the occasion. And with you gone, that challenge has been lost. But this realization is crucial. It's part of his journey. The man who comes back is not the same man who left. He's been forced to see how much he relied on your influence, how much he needed the emotional and intellectual stimulation you provided. In many ways, he's recognized that you were a mirror reflecting back his potential. And now, in the silence, he has to face what happens when that mirror is no longer there. The fact that he returns is a testament to his growth. He may have walked away initially because he wasn't ready to confront himself, but now he's had the time to do so. He's come to understand that growth isn't always comfortable, and that sometimes it takes stepping away to truly see how much a person has contributed to your development. You were never just a partner, you were a catalyst for his evolution. This kind of return, however, isn't just about him realizing how much you helped him grow. It's about both of you recognizing the value of what you shared and the potential for future growth together. You both needed time apart to grow individually, but the foundation you laid for each other is still there. The challenge now is to build on that foundation with a new understanding, a new sense of appreciation for each other's role in each other's growth. The key takeaway is that growth isn't a one-time event, it's a continuous journey. And in his return, he acknowledges that the journey was always meant to be shared. When you can see how much you've impacted someone, you begin to understand the deeper layers of connection. And with that realization comes the opportunity to build something stronger, something more meaningful, something that continues to encourage growth, both individually and as a couple. As you move forward, you both have an opportunity to create a relationship that's not just about emotional fulfillment, but about mutual growth, about pushing each other to become better, to evolve, and to rise above the challenges that life throws your way. And that's something worth fighting for.